Listen closely. What I'm about to tell you might sting. It might unsettle you, make you uncomfortable, even force you to question every choice you've made up to this moment. But it might also set you free. Your entire life has been a lie. You've been living according to a script you never wrote, shaped by voices that were never your own. Since childhood, they've told you who to be, how to think, what to want. They molded you to fit into a space you never chose. And the worst part? You went along with it. Every time you look in the mirror, you see a version of yourself that doesn't quite feel real. That's because it isn't. It's a construction, a reflection shaped by expectations, by fears, by the silent demand to conform. Want proof? Think back to the moments when you silenced your thoughts to avoid judgment. Remember the times you walked a path, not because you wanted to, but because someone else convinced you it was the right one. How many of your choices have truly been yours? Here's the harsh truth. You've become your own prison. No one has to control you anymore. You've learned to control yourself. You put on a mask so often, you started believing that mask was you. But it's not. And deep down, you know it. There's a voice inside you, suffocated by years of conditioning, screaming to be heard. A part of you that wants to break free from the rules that were never yours to begin with. But instead of listening, you drown it out. With distractions, with routine, with excuses, as if time were infinite. But it's not. And every second you spend living this lie is a second you will never get back. So tell me, how much longer will you wait? How much longer will you sit in the audience of your own life, watching instead of living? Because here's the truth. Life doesn't start when you get the degree, land the job, buy the house, or find the perfect partner. It starts when you finally meet yourself, when you have the courage to strip away everything false and face what's left. The light, the dark, the flaws, the fears, the truth. And that's terrifying. Because finding yourself means destroying everything you are not. It means walking away from people who no longer align with you. It means questioning beliefs you've held your entire life. It means facing the parts of yourself you've buried, the ones you're ashamed of, the ones you fear, the ones that keep you awake at night. That is your shadow. And until you confront it, you will never be free. But here's the paradox. What you fear the most about yourself is the very thing that holds the key to your authenticity. Your darkness is not your enemy. It is your power. But only if you stop running and choose to embrace it. Look around you. How much of what you do is truly your own choice? How many of your desires are actually yours, not ones that were handed to you? How much of your life is just a carefully constructed illusion? They told you that being yourself is dangerous, that standing out is a risk, that not fitting in is a problem. But the truth? Fitting in is the real danger. Because the more you force yourself to fit in, the further you drift from your essence. And when that happens, you become weak. You become easy to control. Just another pawn on someone else's chessboard. But there is a way out. Not an easy one, but a real one. Let go of the need for approval. You don't need permission to be yourself. You don't have to justify your desires, your choices, your path. You don't have to be understood by everyone. Because most people don't even understand themselves. Think about it. The people who change the world aren't the ones who blindly follow the rules. They are the ones who break them. The ones who dare to be different. The ones who live unapologetically as who they are. The question is, do you dare? Do you have the courage to stop performing and start living? Because if you don't, you'll remain trapped in this cycle, playing a role that isn't yours, living a life that doesn't belong to you. But if you decide to wake up, be prepared. People don't want you to change. They prefer you predictable, controllable, safe. They will tell you you've changed, that you're being selfish, that you're different now, and they'll be right. Because once you find yourself, you can never go back. You can't unsee your own potential. You can't unknow your own power. So here's your challenge. Dare to see yourself without filters. Dare to destroy what you are not. Dare to embrace who you've always been. Because life doesn't begin with success. It begins with truth. And the truth is you. Now that you've heard it, now that you've felt it, what will you do with it? Because here's what no one tells you. Finding yourself isn't a destination. It's a process. An endless battle between who you are and who you were trained to be. And every day, you will have to choose. Continue lying to yourself, or keep discovering yourself. And the biggest obstacle? Attachment. Attachment to what you know, even if it hurts you. Attachment to a false identity, just because it's comfortable. Attachment to people who add nothing to your life, but give you the illusion of security. And worst of all, attachment to the old version of yourself. The weak, fearful, obedient version. Because the familiar is tempting, even when it's a prison. So are you willing to let it go? Because if you truly want to find yourself, you have to die many times. Not physically, but mentally and emotionally. You have to let your excuses die. Your fears, your limitations. You have to kill the version of you that was created just to fit in, and that will hurt. It will be terrifying. Because at first, when you destroy the false, all that's left is emptiness, and emptiness is frightening, but it is also freedom. Most people never fill that emptiness with their true selves. They fill it with distractions, with validation, with noise. They convince themselves they're fine, that they don't need to change, and they keep spinning in circles, never moving forward, never waking up. You cannot be one of them. Because if you've made it this far, if you're still listening, that means something inside you refuses to settle. It means something inside you is screaming to be heard. So I'll ask you one final question. If you had no fear, if you didn't have to answer to anyone, if judgment didn't exist, who would you be? How would you live? What would you do differently? That answer you've been avoiding. That answer is who you really are. But knowing isn't enough. Imagining isn't enough. You have to act. Because if you discover who you are and do nothing about it, that regret will haunt you more than never knowing at all. So will you take the first step? Because after this moment, you can't unhear this. You have two choices. Ignore it and keep living the same way, or accept it and use it to wake up. To become who you were always meant to be. You decide.